the invisible line that divides two futures. There is a moment, quiet, almost invisible, where a life begins to split. Not in years. Not in dramatic events. But in decisions so small, they barely register. A choice to spend or invest. A choice to react or to think. A choice to seek comfort, or to delay it. In that moment, nothing feels different. There is no alarm. No signal. No warning. But over time, those invisible decisions begin to compound. One path leads toward expansion, freedom, control, and leverage. The other quietly contracts, stress, dependency, and limitation. And the truth is, most people never notice the split. They believe life is happening to them. They blame circumstances, luck, the economy, other people. But beneath all of that, something deeper is at work. A hidden operating system. A pattern. A belief. The real driver, your income identity. At the core of every financial result is identity. Not strategy. Not intelligence. Not even an opportunity. Identity. Your income identity is the internal standard that determines how much you believe you deserve to earn, keep, and grow. It is not what you want. It is what you will allow. And that distinction changes everything. Because no matter how big the opportunity, no matter how powerful the strategy, if it conflicts with your identity, you will reject it. Sometimes consciously. Most of the time, unconsciously. You will hesitate when you should act. You will act when you should wait. You will sabotage progress just as it begins to accelerate. Not because you're lazy. Not because you lack discipline. But because, at a deeper level, your identity is trying to keep you consistent with who you believe you are. The invisible ceiling. Imagine this. Two people are given the exact same opportunity. Same resources. Same timing. Same information. One sees possibility. The other sees risk. One moves with patience, clarity, and long-term thinking. The other moves with urgency, fear, and the need for immediate relief. Months later, their lives look completely different. Not because of luck, but because of how they decided. And those decisions were not random. They were predictable. They were driven by identity. The decision gap begins here. This is where the decision gap is born. It is not just the gap between rich and poor. It is the gap between short-term thinking and long-term vision, emotion and strategy, consumption and creation, reaction and intention. It is the space between who you are and who you need to become. And every single day, you are either widening that gap or closing it. A life built on micro-choices. Your future is not built in one decision. It is built in thousands. The way you spend your mornings. The way you respond to pressure. The way you handle money, time, and discomfort. Each one feels small. But together, they form a pattern. And that pattern becomes your life. Wealth is not an event. It is a result of aligned decisions, repeated over time. Poverty is not always a lack of effort. Often, it is a pattern of decisions driven by urgency, fear, and the need to feel safe right now. The truth most people never hear. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your decisions. And your decisions are controlled by your identity. That is the system. That is the code. And until you understand it, you will keep choosing the same future, over and over again. This audiobook is your interrupt. This is not just a book about money. It is a book about how you think. How you choose. How you unknowingly design your future through patterns you've never questioned. Over the next chapters, you will begin to see why some people naturally move toward leverage and expansion, while others stay trapped in cycles of effort and survival. Why patience creates power, and urgency destroys it. Why the smallest decisions are often the most dangerous ones to ignore. And most importantly, how to rewire the system. A simple question. Before we go any further, ask yourself this. Are your current decisions building the life you want? Or just protecting the life you have? Because those are not the same thing. Before we start, if you're ready to break out of automatic patterns, if you're ready to understand the deeper mechanics behind wealth, decisions, and identity, make sure you subscribe to MindLab Audiobooks. Because this is not just about listening. It's about transformation. The gap is already there. The only question is, will you keep widening it? Or finally close it? Introduction. Why your decisions, not your circumstances, determine your wealth. There is a story most people believe without ever questioning it. It says that wealth is built on opportunity. That success belongs to those who are lucky, connected, or exceptionally talented. That some people are simply in the right place at the right time, while others are not. It's a convenient story. Because it removes responsibility. If circumstances control everything, then your outcomes are not your fault. If luck determines success, then there is nothing to fix, only something to wish for. But this story is incomplete. Because if it were entirely true, then people with the same opportunities would produce the same results. They don't. If it were true, then access to information would level the playing field. It hasn't. If it were true, then hard work alone would guarantee financial progress. It doesn't. So something else is happening beneath the surface. Something quieter, more consistent, and far more powerful. The real variable, decision quality. Wealth is not created by isolated breakthroughs. It is created by decision patterns. Not one decision, but thousands. Repeated daily. Stacked over time. Compounding silently. The difference between financial expansion and financial stagnation is not usually dramatic. It is subtle. It shows up in how long you think before acting. What you prioritize when no one is watching. How you respond to pressure, uncertainty, and delay. Some people make decisions that produce immediate relief. Others make decisions that create long-term advantage. At first, the difference seems small. But over time, it becomes everything. The compound effect of thinking. Every decision carries a hidden consequence. Not just in what it produces, but in what it reinforces. When you choose comfort over growth, you strengthen the habit of avoidance. When you choose urgency over strategy, you reinforce reactive thinking. When you prioritize short-term rewards, you train your mind to ignore long-term value. And the opposite is also true. When you delay gratification, you build control. When you think in decades instead of days, you build clarity. When you choose leverage over effort, you multiply your outcomes. This is where most people misunderstand wealth. They think it's about what you do. But it's really about how you decide. Why this matters more than ever. We live in a world engineered for distraction. A world that rewards speed over depth. Reaction over reflection. Consumption over creation. Every system around you is designed to pull your attention toward what feels good now. Fast money. Quick results. Immediate gratification. And while these may provide temporary relief, they often come at the cost of long-term growth. Because the faster you react, the less you think. And the less you think, the more predictable your outcomes become. Not better. Just repeated. The decision gap. This is the central idea of this audiobook. There is a gap, not just in income, but in thinking. A gap between those who consistently move toward opportunity and those who remain stuck in cycles of effort and limitation. It is not a gap in intelligence. It is not a gap in information. It is a gap in decision frameworks. One group operates from urgency. They make choices to relieve pressure, reduce discomfort, and secure the present. The other operates from intention. They make choices to build leverage, expand capacity, and shape the future. Both groups are making decisions. But they are playing completely different games. You are not exempt from this system. Whether you are aware of it or not, you are already participating. Every day, you are making decisions about how you use your time, where your money goes, what you focus on, what you avoid, what you tolerate. And each of those decisions is either moving you closer to financial independence or reinforcing the conditions that keep you where you are. There is no neutral ground, because even inaction is a decision. The shift this book will create. This audiobook is not here to motivate you temporarily. It is here to restructure how you think, to expose the invisible patterns behind your choices, to reveal the hidden biases driving your behavior, to show you how small decisions create large consequences over time, and most importantly, to give you a framework for making better decisions consistently, not occasionally, not when you feel inspired, but as a system. What you will begin to see as you move through this audiobook, something important will happen. You will start to notice things you couldn't see before. You will see how urgency disguises itself as opportunity, how comfort quietly blocks growth, how your environment influences your choices more than your intentions do. You will begin to recognize patterns in yourself and in others. And once you see them, you cannot unsee them. That awareness is where change begins. A final thought before we begin. There is nothing accidental about your current results. They are the product of decisions. Not just the visible ones, but the invisible patterns beneath them. The good news is this. If your current decisions have created your present reality, then new decisions can create a different one. Not instantly, but inevitably. Transition to Chapter 1. Now, to understand how to change your future, you first need to understand the system that created your present. In the next chapter, we will break down the foundation of everything you're about to learn. The structure behind the split. The mechanism that quietly determines outcomes long before results appear. Chapter 1, The Decision Gap Defined, the hidden split between short-term relief and long-term power. Chapter 1, The Decision Gap Defined. The hidden split between short-term relief and long-term power. There is a moment before every action. A pause so brief, most people never notice it. A space between stimulus and response. Between pressure and reaction. Between the urge to act and the choice of how to act. That space is where your future is decided. Not in the action itself, but in the decision behind it. And within that decision lies a hidden divide. A split so subtle, it goes unnoticed in real time, yet powerful enough to shape the direction of an entire life. This is what we call the decision gap. What the decision gap really is. The decision gap is not a difference in effort. It is not about who works harder, longer, or more consistently. It is a difference in how decisions are made under pressure. Specifically, do you choose what feels good now? Or what creates advantage later? Do you act to relieve discomfort? Or to build long-term leverage? Do you respond emotionally? Or strategically? This is the gap. And every decision you make falls on one side of it. Two paths, one moment. Imagine two individuals facing the same situation. They are both tired. Both stressed. Both dealing with uncertainty about money. At the end of the day, they have a choice. One chooses distraction, scrolling, entertainment, avoidance. It provides immediate relief. The pressure disappears, temporarily. The other chooses discomfort, learning, building, thinking. There is no immediate reward. In fact, it feels harder. At that moment, the difference seems insignificant. Both are simply unwinding in their own way. But zoom out. Repeat that decision daily for a year. One person compounds avoidance. The other compounds grow. And now, the gap is no longer invisible. It is measurable. Income. Opportunities. Confidence. Options. All diverging from a series of small, repeated decisions. Short-term relief versus long-term power. At the core of the decision gap are two competing forces. Short-term relief and long-term power. Short-term relief is immediate. It solves the feeling. It reduces stress. It creates comfort. But it rarely solves the underlying problem. In many cases, it delays it or makes it worse. Long-term power is different. It often feels uncomfortable in the moment. It requires patience, effort, and delayed gratification. But it builds something. Skill. Assets. Leverage. Clarity. And over time, it reduces the need for constant effort. Why most people default to relief? If long-term power is so effective, why don't more people choose it? Because the human brain is not optimized for the future. It is optimized for survival. And survival prioritizes immediate safety. When you feel stress, uncertainty, or pressure, your brain seeks to resolve it quickly. Not optimally. Quickly. That's why. You spend instead of invest. You avoid instead of confront. You react instead of planning. Not because you lack intelligence, but because your system is wired to reduce discomfort as fast as possible. This is where most people get trapped. They mistake relief for progress. The cost of repeated relief. One decision for comfort is not the problem. It's the pattern. When short-term relief becomes your default response, you stop building tolerance for discomfort. You weaken your ability to delay gratification. You reinforce reactive thinking. And over time, this creates a cycle. Pressure relief, temporary stability, more pressure. Nothing fundamentally changes. You stay in motion, but not in progress. The power of strategic decisions. On the other side of the gap are decisions driven by strategy. These decisions ask a different question. Not, what will make me feel better right now? But, what will move me forward long term? This shift changes everything. Because now, you invest even when it feels safer to spend. You learn even when it feels easier to avoid. You wait when others rush. And these decisions begin to stack. At first, the results are invisible. But over time, they compound into something powerful. Control. Control is the real goal. Most people think wealth is about money. It's not. Money is a byproduct. What people actually want is control. Control over time. Control over decisions. Control over environment. Control over future. And control is built through aligned decisions over time. Not a random effort. Not occasional discipline. But consistent, intentional choice-making. The gap widens quietly. Here is what makes the decision gap dangerous. It doesn't announce itself. There is no clear moment where you feel like you're falling behind. In fact, short-term decisions often feel right in the moment. They reduce pressure. They create ease. But beneath the surface, something else is happening. Your future is being shaped, quietly, consistently, and without negotiation. And by the time the results become visible, the pattern is already deeply ingrained. A different way to think. To close the decision gap, you must begin thinking differently. You must slow down the moment. Expand the space between stimulus and response. And ask a better question. Is this decision solving a feeling or building a future? That one question has the power to interrupt automatic behavior. To shift you from reaction to intention. And over time, those small interruptions become a new pattern. Summary. The decision gap is the invisible divide between short-term relief and long-term power. It is not about effort, intelligence, or opportunity. It is about how you choose under pressure. Most people default to decisions that reduce discomfort quickly. But those decisions often prevent long-term growth. Those who build wealth consistently choose differently. They prioritize strategy over emotion. Future outcomes over present relief. Leverage over effort. And while the difference starts small, it compounds into dramatically different lives. Practical lessons and exercises. 1. The pause practice. Before making any non-trivial decision today, pause for 5 seconds. Create awareness between impulse and action. 2. Relief versus growth audit. At the end of your day, list 3 decisions you made. Label each as either short-term relief, long-term power. 3. 1 upgrade rule. Choose one daily habit, spending, time use, learning. Shift just one decision from comfort to growth. 4. Future impact question. Ask yourself daily. What does this decision look like repeated for 5 years? 5. Discomfort training. Intentionally choose one uncomfortable but beneficial action per day. This builds tolerance and rewires your response to pressure. Transition to Chapter 2. Now that you understand the structure of the decision gap, we need to go deeper into what drives these choices internally. Because decisions are not just logical. They are emotional. They are neurological. And they are heavily influenced by how you experience time. In the next chapter, we will explore why some people rush into decisions, while others wait strategically. And how this single difference changes everything. Coming up next. Chapter 2, The Psychology of Urgency versus Patience, Why Poor Minds Rush and Rich Minds Wait. Chapter 2, The Psychology of Urgency versus Patience. Why Poor Minds Rush and Rich Minds Wait. There is a force that quietly controls most decisions. It doesn't look like fear. It doesn't feel like weakness. In fact, it often feels justified. It feels like pressure. The pressure to act now. To decide quickly. To fix the situation immediately. This is urgent. And for most people, urgency feels like responsibility. It feels productive. It feels necessary. It feels like the only option. But beneath that feeling, there is a deeper mechanism at work. Because urgency is not always driven by opportunity. Most of the time, it is driven by discomfort. The emotional engine of urgency. Urgency is emotional. It is the brain's response to perceived instability. When something feels uncertain, money, time, status, control, your system wants resolution. Fast. Not because it's the best move, but because it reduces tension. This is why people accept bad deals just to secure something. Sell too early out of fear of loss. Spend impulsively to feel temporary relief. Jump into opportunities without thinking them through. In each case, the goal is not progress. The goal is emotional relief. And urgency delivers that, temporarily. Why urgency feels like the right move. Here is what makes urgency dangerous. It disguises itself as logic. You tell yourself, I need to act before it's too late. I can't afford to wait. This is my only chance. Something is better than nothing. These statements feel rational. But often, they are driven by internal pressure, not external reality. And when decisions are made under pressure, the time horizon shrinks. You stop thinking about consequences. You start thinking about escape. The collapse of time horizon. Urgency compresses your perception of time. Instead of thinking in years, you think in days. Instead of thinking about outcomes, you think in feelings. This creates a dangerous shift. You begin to prioritize speed over quality. You choose what is fast, not what is effective. And while fast decisions can sometimes work, repeated fast decisions, without strategy, create instability. Because you are constantly reacting, instead of building. Patience, the unseen advantage. On the other side of urgency is patience. Not passive waiting. Not avoidance. Strategic patience. Patience is the ability to tolerate uncertainty without forcing a decision. It is the ability to hold tension without needing immediate resolution. And this is where the gap becomes clear. Because most people cannot do this. They feel pressure, and they move. But those who build wealth think differently. They don't just ask, what can I do now? They ask, what is the best move over time? And sometimes, the best move is to wait. Waiting as a strategy. Waiting is often misunderstood. It is seen as inaction. As hesitation. A missed opportunity. But in reality, waiting can be one of the most powerful strategic decisions. Because not every opportunity is equal. Not every moment requires action. Not every pressure deserves a response. When you wait, you allow more information to emerge. You allow emotions to settle. You allow clarity to develop. And clarity improves decision quality. The ability to hold tension. The real difference between urgency and patience is not intelligence. It is emotional tolerance. Can you sit with uncertainty without reacting? Can you experience discomfort without escaping it? Can you delay resolution in favor of better outcomes? Most people cannot. So they act. And in acting quickly, they sacrifice leverage. How the wealthy use time differently. Wealthy thinkers operate with a different relationship to time. They expand it. They think in years instead of weeks. Systems instead of single actions. Compounding instead of immediate results. Because of this, they are less reactive. They are not chasing resolution. They are building positioning. And positioning requires patience. The hidden cost of impatience. Impatience doesn't just lead to bad decisions. It eliminates good ones. When you rush, you miss better opportunities. You lock yourself into suboptimal paths. You reduce flexibility. And once a decision is made, it carries consequences. Time, money, and attention become committed. Which means fewer options later. This is the real cost. Not just what you choose, but what you eliminate by choosing too quickly. Delayed gratification is a skill. Patience is not natural. It is trained. Every time you resist the urge to act immediately, you strengthen your ability to think long-term. Every time you delay a reward, you increase your control over your decisions. And control is what allows strategy to exist. Without control, there is only reaction. A simple reframe. When you feel urgency, don't immediately trust it. Question it. Ask. Is this pressure real or internal? Am I acting to improve my position or to relieve discomfort? Would I make the same decision if I felt calm? These questions slow the moment. They expand your time horizon. And they move you closer to intentional decisions. Summary. Urgency is driven by emotion, not always by opportunity. It compresses your thinking, shortens your time horizon, and pushes you toward quick relief. Patience, on the other hand, expands your thinking. It allows for better decisions, better positioning, and long-term advantage. The difference between those who struggle and those who build wealth is often this. One reacts to pressure. The other manages it. And in that difference, everything changes. Practical lessons and exercises. 1. The 24-hour rule. For any significant decision, wait 24 hours before acting. This reduces emotional influence and improves clarity. 2. Urgency awareness log. Track moments when you feel pressure to act quickly. Write down what triggered it and how you responded. 3. Calm state decision test. Ask yourself, would I still make this decision if I felt completely calm? 4. Time horizon expansion. Before making a choice, ask, how will this decision affect me in 1 year? 5 years? 5. Discomfort endurance practice. Intentionally delay a small gratification daily, checking your phone, buying something, reacting emotionally. Train your ability to hold tension. Transition to Chapter 3. Now you understand the emotional force behind decisions. But urgency and patience don't just influence big choices. They shape something even more powerful. Your daily habits. Your routines. Your micro-decisions. Because your life is not built on major turning points. It is built on what you do repeatedly without thinking. In the next chapter, we will break down how small, almost invisible decisions compound into massive outcomes over time. Coming up next. Chapter 3, Micro-Decisions, Massive Consequences, How Small Daily Choices Quietly Build or Destroy Your Future. Chapter 3, Micro-Decisions, Massive Consequences. How small daily choices quietly build or destroy your future. There is a misconception that holds many people back. It says that success is the result of big moves. That wealth is created through major breakthroughs, rare opportunities, or one defining decision. But if you look closely at how lives actually unfold, you'll see something very different. Your future is not built in moments of intensity. It is built in moments of repetition. Small decisions. Daily actions. Patterns are so subtle, they feel insignificant. And yet, they carry enormous weight. The power of the invisible. Micro-decisions are the choices you make without thinking. They don't feel important. They don't feel strategic. They don't feel like they matter. But they happen constantly. What you do when you wake up. How you spend your first hour. What you consume, content, food, information. How you respond to inconvenience. How you handle small amounts of money. Each of these decisions seems harmless in isolation. But together, they form a pattern. And that pattern becomes your baseline. Your life is a system, not an event. Most people approach change like an event. They wait for motivation. They look for a breakthrough. They expect a moment where everything shifts. But sustainable change doesn't work that way. It operates as a system. A system of repeated decisions that reinforce each other. If your system is built on distraction, avoidance, and short-term thinking, no single moment will fix it. And if your system is built on focus, discipline, and long-term thinking, no single mistake will destroy it. The compound effect in action. Imagine two individuals. Both start at the same point. Same income. Same knowledge. Same opportunities. The only difference is this. One makes slightly better decisions each day. They spend a little less impulsively. They invest a little more consistently. They learn a little more deliberately. They manage their time a little more intentionally. The other does the opposite. They choose convenience over consistency. Consumption over creation. Distraction over focus. On any given day, the difference is almost invisible. But over time, the gap expands. Weeks become months. Months become years. And eventually, the outcomes look completely unrelated. Not because of one big decision, but because of thousands of small ones. Why small decisions are so powerful? Microdecisions matter for two reasons. They compound, and they condition. First, they compound. A small improvement repeated daily becomes a significant advantage over time. A small mistake repeated daily becomes a serious limitation. Second, they condition. Every decision reinforces a pattern. When you choose focus, you strengthen discipline. When you choose distraction, you strengthen avoidance. Over time, these patterns become automatic. You no longer decide consciously. You default. The danger of "it doesn't matter." Most poor decisions are justified with one thought. This doesn't really matter. It's just one purchase. One missed session. One wasted hour. One impulsive reaction. And in isolation, that's true. It doesn't matter. But repetition changes everything. Because what you repeat, you become. Identity is built through micro-choices. This is where micro-decisions connect back to identity. Every small choice sends a signal. This is who I am. When you follow through, you reinforce reliability. When you avoid, you reinforce inconsistency. When you delay gratification, you reinforce control. These signals accumulate. And over time, they form your identity. Not the identity you claim, but the one you demonstrate. Automation, the hidden force. Eventually, micro-decisions stop feeling like decisions. They become habits. Automatic behaviors that require little to no thought. This is powerful, but also dangerous. Because once something is automated, you stop questioning it. If your habits are aligned with growth, this works in your favor. If they are not, they quietly keep you stuck. And the longer a pattern runs, the harder it is to change. The real reason people stay stuck. People don't stay stuck because they lack information. They stay stuck because their micro-decisions are misaligned. They want long-term results. But their daily actions support short-term comfort. They think in goals. But they act in habits. And until those habits change, nothing else will. Shifting the focus. To close the decision gap, you must shift your focus. Stop asking, "What big move should I make?" Start asking, "What small decision can I make today?" Because big outcomes are built on small foundations. And when the foundation is strong, growth becomes inevitable. A different approach to change. Instead of trying to overhaul your entire life, focus on one area, one pattern, one decision. Make it slightly better. Then repeat. Consistency creates momentum. Momentum creates identity. And identity shapes your future. Summary. Your life is not defined by major decisions alone. It is shaped by micro-decisions, small, repeated actions that compound over time. These decisions build patterns. Those patterns form habits. And those habits define your identity. Most people underestimate small choices because they don't see immediate results. But over time, these choices create massive differences in outcomes. To change your future, you don't need one big decision. You need better small decisions, repeated consistently. Practical lessons and exercises. 1. Microdecision awareness. For one full day, observe your small choices. Write down at least 10 decisions you normally ignore. 2. The 1% upgrade. Choose one daily habit and improve it slightly. Not perfectly, just better. 3. Pattern identification. Look at your last 7 days. Identify one repeated behavior that is holding you back. 4. Replacement strategy. Don't eliminate a bad habit, replace it. Swap one negative microdecision with a positive one. 5. Consistency tracking. Track one small action daily for 30 days. Focus on repetition, not intensity. Transition to Chapter 4. Now you understand how small decisions shape your life. But there is a force that constantly pulls those decisions in the wrong direction. A force that makes comfort feel like the right choice, even when it's not. In the next chapter, we will uncover one of the most dangerous patterns in decision-making: the need for ease, and how it quietly prevents growth. Coming up next. Chapter 4, The Comfort Trap: Why Choosing Easy Today Creates Hard Tomorrow. Chapter 4, The Comfort Trap. Why choosing easy today creates hard tomorrow. Comfort feels harmless. It feels earned. It feels justified. It feels like something you deserve after effort, stress, or uncertainty. And in small, controlled doses, it is. But when comfort becomes your default decision-making filter, it quietly turns into a trap. Not because comfort is bad, but because of what it replaces: growth. The nature of comfort. Comfort is the absence of tension. No pressure. No resistance. No demand to stretch beyond your current capacity. Your brain is naturally drawn to it, because comfort signals safety. And safety, at a biological level, means survival. So when you are given a choice between what is easy and what is challenging, your system will almost always lean toward ease. Not because it's the best choice, but because it feels like the safest one. The problem with easy decisions. Easy decisions solve the present. They reduce effort. They remove discomfort. They create immediate satisfaction. But they rarely improve your position. In fact, they often preserve it. And when your current position is not where you want to be, preservation becomes the problem. Because staying the same requires no effort. But improving always does. The delayed cost of comfort. Comfort decisions have a hidden structure. They feel good now, but cost you later. You skip the learning, you stay uninformed. You avoid the risk, you miss the opportunity. You delay the effort, the problem grows. The cost is not immediate, which is why it's easy to ignore. But over time, these costs accumulate. And eventually, they show up as limited income, fewer options, increased stress, dependence on circumstances. All results of decisions that once felt small and harmless. Hard now or hard later. Every decision carries a form of difficulty. The question is not whether it will be hard. The question is when. You can choose. Hard now, effort, discipline, discomfort. Or hard later, stress, limitation, regret. Comfort delays the difficulty, but it does not remove it. In many cases, it amplifies it. Why comfort becomes addictive? Comfort is not just a preference. It is reinforcing. Every time you choose ease, your brain rewards you. You feel relief. You feel better. You reduce internal tension. And that reward strengthens the behavior. Over time, you begin to associate discomfort with avoidance, comfort with safety. This creates a loop. Discomfort appears, you choose ease, you feel relief, the pattern strengthens. And eventually, you stop challenging yourself altogether. The shrinking of your world. When comfort becomes your default, your world begins to shrink. You avoid unfamiliar situations. You resist new challenges. You stay within predictable environments. At first, this feels stable. But stability without growth leads to stagnation. And stagnation creates vulnerability. Because while you stay the same, the world continues to change. Opportunities evolve. Markets shift. Skills become outdated. And without growth, you fall behind, not suddenly, but gradually. The comfort illusion. Comfort creates the illusion of control. It makes you feel like things are fine. Even when they are not improving. Even when they are slowly declining. This is dangerous. Because you don't feel the urgency to change. Until it's too late. Until pressure forces action. And forced decisions are rarely optimal. The role of discomfort in growth. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the signal of expansion. It appears when you are learning something new, taking on more responsibility, moving beyond familiar patterns. Discomfort means you are stretching your capacity. And capacity is what creates leverage. Without discomfort, there is no growth. Redefining comfort. To escape the comfort trap, you must redefine what comfort means. Instead of associating comfort with ease, associate it with alignment. Not what feels good right now, but what aligns with the person I want to become. Because true comfort is not found in avoiding difficulty. It is found in knowing you are moving forward. Building a new default. The goal is not to eliminate comfort. It is to change your relationship with it. To stop using comfort as a decision filter. And start using it as a reward, not a default. This means choosing effort before ease. Choosing growth before relief. Choosing long-term gain over short-term comfort. Repeated consistently. These choices build resilience. And resilience expands your options. The compound effect of hard choices. Just like comfort compounds, so does effort. Every time you choose the harder, more beneficial option, you build discipline. You increase tolerance for discomfort. You strengthen your identity. And over time, what once felt difficult becomes normal. Summary. Comfort is not inherently harmful. But when it becomes your default decision-making filter, it limits growth. Easy decisions solve immediate discomfort but often create long-term problems. Every choice is either hard now or hard later. Choosing comfort delays the difficulty but increases its cost. Discomfort, on the other hand, is a signal of growth. To close the decision gap, you must stop prioritizing ease and start prioritizing alignment. Because the life you want will always require decisions that feel uncomfortable at first. Practical lessons and exercises. 1. Comfort awareness audit. Identify 3 areas in your life where you consistently choose ease over growth. 2. Daily discomfort challenge. Do one thing each day that feels slightly uncomfortable but beneficial. 3. Hard choice reframe. When facing a difficult decision, ask, is this hard now or hard later? 4. Delay comfort reward. Complete one productive task before allowing yourself a comfort activity. 5. Environment shift. Place yourself in environments that challenge you, physically, mentally, or socially. Transition to Chapter 5. Now you understand how comfort keeps people stuck. But avoiding comfort alone is not enough. You also need a better strategy for progress. Because effort, by itself, has limits. There is a smarter way to build results. A way that multiplies output without multiplying effort. In the next chapter, we explore one of the most powerful shifts in thinking. From working harder, to working with leverage. Coming up next. Chapter 5, The Leverage Principle, How Rich Thinkers Multiply Effort While Others Trade Time for Survival. Chapter 5, The Leverage Principle. How rich thinkers multiply effort while others trade time for survival. Most people believe progress comes from working harder. More hours. More effort. More sacrifice. And at a certain level, that belief works. Effort produces results. But only to a point. Because effort has a ceiling. There are only so many hours in a day. Only so much energy can be expended. Only so much output you can produce alone. And once you reach that ceiling, more effort stops creating meaningful growth. This is where the paths begin to split. The limitation of linear effort. Linear effort follows a simple equation. More work equals more output. You trade time for results. If you stop working, results stop. If you slow down, income slows down. This is how most people operate. It feels fair. It feels predictable. It feels controllable. But it is also limiting. Because no matter how hard you work, your results are capped by your time. What leverage really means. Leverage changes the equation. Instead of more work equals more output, it becomes smarter systems equals multiplied output. Leverage is the ability to produce results that are disproportionate to your direct effort. It allows you to earn beyond your hours, scale beyond your personal capacity, create outcomes that continue without constant input. In simple terms, leverage lets you do once what pays repeatedly. The three primary forms of leverage. Leverage is not abstract. It shows up in specific forms. 1. Time leverage, people. Using the skills, time, and effort of others. Teams, partnerships, delegation. Instead of doing everything yourself, you multiply output through collaboration. 2. Capital leverage, money. Using money to generate more money. Investments, assets, ownership. Instead of spending everything you earn, you deploy it to work on your behalf. 3. System leverage, technology and processes. Using tools, automation, and systems. Content, software, distribution platforms. Instead of repeating tasks manually, you build once and scale indefinitely. Most people rely only on effort. Those who build wealth combine effort with leverage. Why most people avoid leverage? If leverage is so powerful, why doesn't everyone use it? Because leverage requires a different way of thinking. It requires patience instead of urgency, planning instead of reacting, investment instead of consumption, and most importantly, it requires letting go of control. When you work alone, everything depends on you. When you use leverage, you must trust systems, people, or processes. That uncertainty creates discomfort. And many people retreat back to what feels familiar. Doing everything themselves. The effort trap. Working harder feels productive. It gives immediate feedback. It creates a sense of control. It produces visible output. But it can also become a trap. Because effort is addictive. You feel valuable when you are busy. You feel secure when you are working. But busyness is not the same as progress. You can work all day and still not move forward. Leverage requires delayed reward. Building leverage is uncomfortable in the beginning. You invest time or money without immediate results. You build systems that don't pay off right away. You learn skills that take time to compound. You create assets before they produce returns. This is why many people quit early. They expect immediate feedback. But leverage operates on delay. The shift from worker to builder. At some point, to close the decision gap, you must make a shift. From being a worker to become a builder. A worker focuses on tasks. A builder focuses on systems. A worker asks, "What do I need to do today?" A builder asks, "What can I create that works for me over time?" This shift changes everything. Because now, your effort is not just producing results. It is creating engines. Examples of leverage in action. Leverage is everywhere, once you start to see it. A piece of content that reaches thousands. An investment that grows while you sleep. A business system that operates without constant input. In each case, the principle is the same. Initial effort, multiplied over time. The multiplication effect. When leverage is applied consistently, results accelerate. Not linearly, but exponentially. At first, progress feels slow. Then it builds. And eventually, it compounds into something significant. This is why some people seem to break through suddenly, while others remain stuck despite constant effort. The difference is not luck. It is accumulated leverage. Control versus scale. There is a trade-off most people struggle with. Control versus scale. Working alone gives you control, but limits your growth. Using leverage reduces control, but expands your potential. To grow, you must be willing to release some control. To trust systems. To trust processes. To trust delayed outcomes. The new decision framework. To apply leverage, you must start asking different questions. Not, what can I do right now? But, what can I build that continues to produce? Not, how can I earn more today? But, how can I create something that earns money repeatedly? These questions shift your focus from effort to strategy. Summary. Effort alone has limits. It is linear, time-bound, and capped by your capacity. Leverage multiplies results by using systems, capital, and people. Most people avoid leverage because it requires patience, planning, and delayed gratification. But those who use it consistently create outcomes far beyond their individual effort. To close the decision gap, you must shift from working harder to building smarter. From doing more to multiplying what you do. Practical lessons and exercises. 1. Leverage identification. List 3 areas where you rely only on effort. Ask, how can I introduce leverage here? 2. Build one asset. Start creating something that can produce value repeatedly. Content, skill, system, or investment. 3. Time audit. Track how you spend your time for one day. Identify tasks that could be delegated or automated. 4. Think in systems. Take one repeated task and design a simple process for it. 5. Delayed reward practice. Commit to one activity that will not pay off immediately, but will compound over time. Transition to Chapter 6. Now you understand how leverage multiplies results. But leverage only works if you give it time. And this is where most people fail. They think in days, when they should be thinking in decades. They expect immediate outcomes from long-term strategies. In the next chapter, we will explore one of the most critical shifts in thinking. Expanding your time horizon. Because the way you perceive time determines the quality of your decisions. Coming up next. Chapter 6, Time Horizon Thinking, the difference between living for today and designing decades. Chapter 6, Time Horizon Thinking. The difference between living for today and designing decades. There is a question hidden inside every decision you make. You rarely ask it directly. But it is always there, shaping your choices. That question is, how far into the future am I thinking right now? Because every decision operates on a time horizon. Some decisions are made for the next hour. Some for the next week. Some for the next year. And a few for the next decade. And the length of that horizon changes everything. What is a time horizon? Your time horizon is the span of the future you consider when making a decision. Short horizon thinking focuses on immediate outcomes, quick rewards, fast resolution. Long horizon thinking focuses on delayed outcomes, compounding results, sustained advantage. Neither is inherently wrong. But the problem arises when your entire life is driven by short horizons. Because short-term thinking cannot produce long-term results. The invisible limit on your life. Your time horizon acts like an invisible boundary. It limits what you are willing to do and what you are willing to wait for. If you think in days, you avoid actions that take months to pay off. You prioritize speed over quality. You seek constant feedback and validation. If you think in years, you accept slow beginnings. You invest in things that compound. You tolerate delayed results. Same world. Same opportunities. Different timelines. Different outcomes. Why most people think short-term? Short-term thinking is not a flaw. It is the default. Your brain is wired to prioritize immediate survival. Food. Safety. Certainty. So when uncertainty appears, financial pressure, instability, stress, your system narrows its focus. You stop thinking long-term. You focus on what solves the problem now. This is why people take quick money instead of building assets. Abandon long-term plans for short-term relief. Chase trends instead of developing skills. Not because they don't understand the long-term, but because they feel pressure in the present. The cost of short horizons. Short-term thinking creates a pattern. You solve problems temporarily, but recreate them repeatedly. You earn, then spend. You start, then stop. You move forward, then reset. Progress becomes inconsistent because your decisions are not aligned with a long-term direction. They are reactions to immediate conditions. Long-term thinking creates leverage. When you extend your time horizon, your decisions change. You stop asking, what works right now? And start asking, what will still matter in 5 or 10 years? This shift eliminates many poor decisions instantly. Because most short-term opportunities do not survive long-term thinking. You begin to invest in skills instead of quick wins. Build systems instead of chasing results. Create assets instead of consuming income. And these decisions compound. The patience paradox. Here is the paradox. Long-term thinking often produces faster results. Not immediately, but eventually. Because when you commit to long-term strategies, you stop restarting. You stop chasing distractions. You focus your energy consistently. And consistency accelerates progress. While others are switching directions, you are compounding in one. The delayed gratification advantage. Time horizon thinking is closely tied to delayed gratification. The ability to sacrifice something now for something greater later. This is not about denial. It is about prioritization. You are not giving things up. You are choosing when to have them. Those who can delay gratification build stronger foundations, make better decisions, create more stable outcomes, because they are not controlled by the present moment. The identity of a long-term thinker. Long-term thinking is not just a strategy. It is an identity. It shows up in how you plan your time, allocate your resources, respond to setbacks, measure progress. A long-term thinker is not discouraged by slow beginnings. They expect them. The 10-year filter. One of the most powerful tools you can use is a simple filter. Will this matter in 10 years? If the answer is no, be cautious about how much energy you invest. If the answer is yes, be willing to commit deeply, even if results are slow. This filter cuts through noise. It removes distractions. It forces clarity. Designing your future intentionally. When you think long-term, you stop drifting. You start designing. Instead of reacting to life, you begin to shape it. You define what you want to build, who you want to become, what systems will get you there. And then you align your daily decisions with that vision. This is how the decision gap begins to close. The gap between knowing and doing. Most people understand long-term thinking, but they don't apply it. Because understanding is easy. Execution requires discipline. It requires saying no to immediate rewards, staying consistent without visible progress, trusting a process that hasn't paid off yet. And that is where most people stop. Summary. Your time horizon determines the quality of your decisions. Short-term thinking focuses on immediate relief and quick results. Long-term thinking focuses on compounding, leverage, and sustained growth. Most people default to short-term decisions because of pressure and uncertainty. But those who extend their time horizon make better choices, stay consistent, and build lasting results. To close the decision gap, you must begin thinking beyond the present moment. Because the future you want requires decisions made far in advance. Practical lessons and exercises. 1. Time horizon awareness. Before making a decision, ask, what time frame am I thinking about right now? 2. The 10-year filter. Evaluate one major decision using a 10-year perspective. 3. Delayed gratification practice. Choose one reward to delay each day. Train your ability to prioritize long-term outcomes. 4. Future planning session. Spend 30 minutes defining where you want to be in 5 to 10 years. 5. Consistency commitment. Pick one long-term activity and commit to it for 30 days, regardless of immediate results. Transition to Chapter 7. Now you understand how time shapes your decisions. But there is something even deeper influencing them. Something that determines what you believe is possible and what you reject without realizing it. Your identity. Because no matter how well you think, you will always act in alignment with who you believe you are. In the next chapter, we will explore how identity controls your decisions and why changing your thinking is not enough without changing who you see yourself as. Coming up next. Chapter 7, Identity and Decision Making, Why You Can't Outperform the Person You Believe You Are. Chapter 7, Identity and Decision Making. Why you can't outperform the person you believe you are. There is a limit on your life that has nothing to do with money, skill, or opportunity. It is quieter than that. More personal. More consistent. It is the limit of your identity. Not who you say you are, but who you believe you are, at your core. Because every decision you make must pass through that filter. And if a decision conflicts with your identity, you will resist it, delay it, or destroy it. Identity is the invisible governor. Think of identity as an internal thermostat. It sets a range for what feels normal to you. Income level, lifestyle, work habits, standards. When you operate within that range, everything feels stable. But when you move beyond it, discomfort appears. Doubt, fear, overthinking. Not because something is wrong, but because something is unfamiliar. And your system interprets unfamiliar as unsafe. The return to baseline. This is why people often experience temporary progress, followed by regression. They earn more, then lose it. They build momentum, then stop. They improve habits, then fall back. From the outside, it looks like an inconsistency. But internally, it is a correction. A return to identity. You are not just pursuing results. You are maintaining self-consistency. Decisions follow identity, not intention. Most people believe their decisions are driven by goals. They are not. They are driven by identity. You can set a goal to build wealth. But if you identify as someone who struggles financially, your decisions will reflect that belief. You will undervalue opportunities, avoid calculated risks, prioritize short-term comfort, doubt long-term strategies. Not consciously, automatically. The conflict between who you are and who you want to be. Growth requires change. But change creates conflict. Because the actions required to move forward often do not align with your current identity. You want to invest, but you feel like a spender. You want to lead, but you feel inexperienced. You want to build, but you feel uncertain. So even when you know what to do, you hesitate. And that hesitation is not about knowledge. It is about identity mismatch. The income-identity connection. This brings us back to a critical concept. Your income identity. The internal standard that determines how much you believe you deserve to earn, keep, and grow. It is not based on logic. It is based on conditioning. Past experiences. Environment. Beliefs absorbed over time. And once established, it begins to control your decisions. If your identity is set at a certain level, you will unconsciously make decisions that keep you there, even if better opportunities exist. How self-sabotage actually works. Self-sabotage is not random. It is predictable. It happens when your actions begin to exceed your identity. You start making progress. And suddenly, you procrastinate. You lose focus. You make impulsive decisions. You abandon the process. From the outside, it looks irrational. But internally, it is consistent. You are protecting your identity. The role of familiarity. Humans are drawn to what is familiar. even when it is not beneficial. Because familiarity feels safe. So if struggle is familiar, you will recreate it. If inconsistency is familiar, you will repeat it. Not because you want to fail, but because your system prefers known discomfort over unknown potential. Shifting identity through decisions. You cannot change your identity through thinking alone. You change it through evidence. Through repeated actions that contradict your current beliefs. Every time you follow through, make a strategic decision, delay gratification, choose long-term over short-term, you send a signal. This is who I am now. At first, it felt unnatural. But repetition creates familiarity. And familiarity becomes identity. The importance of alignment. To close the decision gap, your decisions and identity must align. If they don't, you will experience friction, inconsistency, resistance, burnout. But when they do align, decisions become easier. Consistency increases. Progress accelerates. Because you are no longer forcing behavior. You are expressing identity. Becoming the person first. Most people try to achieve first and become later. But it works the other way around. You must become the person before the results fully appear. Not perfectly, but progressively. You begin acting like the person who thinks long-term, uses leverage, makes strategic decisions. And over time, those actions reinforce the identity. A new standard. Identity is not fixed. It is built. And you build it by setting a new standard. Not based on what feels comfortable, but based on what aligns with your future. This means raising your expectations, changing your environment, choosing differently, even when it feels unnatural. Because every aligned decision strengthens the new identity. Summary. Your identity sets the limit for your decisions. And your decisions determine your results. If your identity and goals are misaligned, progress will be inconsistent. Self-sabotage is not failure, it is identity protection. To create lasting change, you must shift your identity. Not through intention, but through repeated, aligned decisions. Because you cannot outperform the person you believe you are. Practical lessons and exercises. 1. Identity awareness. Write down. What kind of person do my current decisions reflect? 2. Future identity definition. Define the person you need to become to achieve your goals. 3. Evidence building. Each day, take one action that aligns with your future identity. 4. Language shift. Change how you speak to yourself. From, I'm trying to I am someone who. 5. Pattern interruption. When you notice self-sabotage, pause and ask, which identity am I acting from right now? Transition to Chapter 8. Now you understand how identity shapes your decisions. But there is another force that operates even faster. More reactive. More immediate. Your emotions. Because even with the right identity, if your emotions are not managed, they can override your logic in seconds. In the next chapter, we will break down how emotional patterns influence your decisions, and how they keep people trapped in repeating cycles. Coming up next. Chapter 8, Emotional Decision Loops, How Fear, Stress, and Dopamine Keep People Stuck. Chapter 8, Emotional Decision Loops. How fear, stress, and dopamine keep people stuck. Before logic has a chance to speak, emotion has already decided. That is how fast it works. A trigger appears. A feeling rises. A decision follows. And only after the action is taken can you explain it. You call it reasoning. You call it analysis. But most of the time, it is justification. Because your decisions are not only shaped by what you think. They are driven by what you feel. The hidden loop behind your choices. Every repeated behavior follows a loop. Trigger, emotion, action, reward. It happens constantly. You feel stress, you seek relief, you scroll, spend, avoid, you feel better. You feel uncertainty, you rush a decision, you gain temporary control, you feel stable. You feel boredom, you seek stimulation, you consume, you feel engaged. Each loop ends with a reward. Relief. Control. Pleasure. And that reward reinforces the behavior. Over time, the loop becomes automatic. You don't decide consciously. You react. Fear, the driver of protective decisions. Fear is one of the most powerful emotional drivers. It doesn't always show up as panic. Often, it appears as doubt, overthinking, hesitation, urgency. Fear is not trying to harm you. It is trying to protect you from loss, from failure, from the unknown. But in doing so, it often pushes you towards safer, smaller decisions. You avoid risks that could expand you. You stay in situations that limit you. You reject opportunities that feel uncertain. Not because they are wrong, but because they feel uncomfortable. Stress, the force that shortens thinking. Stress compresses your mental capacity. When you are under pressure, your thinking becomes narrow. Your patience decreases. Your time horizon collapses. You stop evaluating long-term outcomes. You focus on immediate resolution. This is why stress leads to impulsive spending, poor financial decisions, reactive communication, abandoning long-term plans. Stress does not just affect how you feel. It changes how you decide. Dopamine, the reward system that keeps you looping. Dopamine is often misunderstood. It is not just about pleasure. It is about anticipation of reward. It drives you to seek experiences that feel good. Quick wins. Fast feedback. Instant gratification. This is why scrolling feels addictive. Spending feels satisfying. Distraction feels rewarding. Because each of these actions delivers a small dopamine hit. And your brain learns. This is good. Do it again. Over time, this creates dependency on short-term rewards and weakens your ability to pursue long-term goals. The loop that keeps people stuck. When fear, stress, and dopamine combine, they create powerful cycles. You feel pressure, you seek relief, you get a reward, the behavior repeats. This loop becomes your default response. And once it is established, you stop questioning it. You believe this is just how you are. But it is not your personality. It is a pattern. Why logic is not enough. Most people try to change their behavior with logic. They tell themselves, I should invest more. I should stop wasting time. I should think long term. But when emotion rises, logic disappears. Because emotional systems operate faster than rational ones. If you don't address the loop, you will keep repeating the same decisions. Even when you know better. Awareness, the first interruption. You cannot change a loop you don't see. The first step is awareness. Noticing. What triggers your reactions? What emotions follow? What actions you take? What reward you receive? Once you see the pattern, you create a gap. And in that gap, you regain choice. Replacing, not removing. You cannot eliminate emotional loops. But you can redirect them. Instead of stress distraction relief, you create stress productive action progress. Instead of boredom consumption stimulation, you create boredom learning growth. The structure remains the same, but the outcome changes. Building new reward systems. To change behavior, you must change the reward. If growth feels slow and unrewarding, you will not sustain it. So you must begin to recognize progress. Track small wins. Create satisfaction from discipline. Train your brain to associate effort with reward, consistency with progress, discomfort with growth. This rewires your internal system. Emotional control is decision control. When you manage your emotional responses, you improve your decisions. You stop reacting automatically. You start choosing intentionally. This does not mean eliminating emotion. It means not being controlled by it. Because emotions are signals, not instructions. Slowing the loop. One of the most powerful skills you can develop is slowing the loop. When a trigger appears, pause. Even briefly. That pause interrupts the automatic sequence. It gives your rational mind time to engage. And that is where better decisions are made. Summary. Your decisions are shaped by emotional loops. Trigger, emotion, action, reward. Fear drives protective, limiting decisions. Stress shortens your thinking and creates urgency. Dopamine reinforces short-term behaviors. These loops become automatic over time. And logic alone is not enough to break them. To change your decisions, you must become aware of your patterns. Interrupt the loop. Replace behaviors with better ones. Create new reward systems. Because when you control the loop, you control your outcomes. Practical lessons and exercises. 1. Trigger identification. Write down 3 situations that consistently trigger negative decisions. 2. Loop mapping. For each trigger, map the full loop. Trigger, emotion, action, reward. 3. Pause practice. When triggered, pause for 3 to 5 seconds before acting. 4. Replacement strategy. Define one better action for each common trigger. 5. Reward awareness. After making a positive decision, consciously acknowledge the benefit. Transition to Chapter 9. Now you understand how emotional loops drive repeated decisions. But there is another level of thinking that separates those who stay stuck from those who create exponential results. It is not just about controlling emotions. It is about how you evaluate risk and reward. Because most people try to avoid loss, while others position themselves for disproportionate gain. In the next chapter, we explore a powerful concept. Making decisions where the upside is unlimited and the downside is control. Coming up next. Chapter 9, Asymmetry Thinking, How the Wealthy Make Decisions with Unlimited Upside and Limited Risk. Chapter 9, Asymmetry Thinking. How the wealthy make decisions with unlimited upside and limited risk. Most people approach decisions with one primary goal: avoid losing. They ask, what if this goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I lose what I already have? And because of that focus, they either avoid action entirely, or choose options that feel safe but offer little growth. But there is another way to think. A way that changes how risk is evaluated and how opportunity is pursued. It is called asymmetry. What asymmetry really means. Asymmetry is not about avoiding risk. It is about structuring decisions where the downside is limited and the upside is significantly larger. In simple terms, you risk a little to potentially gain a lot. This is the opposite of how most people operate. They often risk a lot for very little return. Time, energy, money, spent for minimal upside. The difference in thinking. When faced with a decision, a reactive mindset asks, how do I stay safe? An asymmetrical mindset asks, what is the risk-to-reward ratio? Not all risks are equal. Some carry high downside with low upside. Others carry low downside with high upside. The key is not to eliminate risk. It is to choose better risks. Examples of asymmetric decisions. Consider this. Learning a valuable skill. The downside is limited. Time, effort, temporary discomfort. The upside is expansive. Higher income, more opportunities, long-term leverage. That is asymmetry. Or creating something scalable. A piece of content, a system, an asset. The cost is finite. The potential return is open-ended. Again, asymmetry. Why most people miss these opportunities? Because asymmetrical opportunities often look uncertain. They don't guarantee immediate results. They don't feel secure. They don't provide instant validation. And most people are conditioned to prefer certainty, even if that certainty is limiting. So they choose predictable income over scalable opportunity. Short-term gain over long-term potential. safety over expansion. And in doing so, they eliminate the possibility of disproportionate outcomes. The role of loss aversion. There is a psychological bias at play. Loss aversion. People feel the pain of losing more strongly than the pleasure of gaining. So even when the upside is large, the possibility of loss dominates the decision. This leads to overcaution, missed opportunities, stagnation. But those who think asymmetrically reframe this. They don't ask, "What if I lose?" They ask, "How much can I lose, and is it acceptable?" Controlling the downside. The first rule of asymmetry. Protect the downside. Define the maximum cost before you act. Time, money, energy. Set boundaries. This creates clarity. Because once the downside is controlled, you are free to focus on the upside. Expanding the upside. The second rule. Look for opportunities where the upside is not capped. Where one decision can lead to multiple outcomes, compounding effects, unexpected growth. These are not always obvious. They require patience, exploration, willingness to experiment. But they are the decisions that create breakthroughs. Small bets, big potential. Asymmetry does not require large risks. It requires smart positioning. You can make small bets, test ideas, explore opportunities, build gradually. And when something shows potential, you scale it. This reduces risk while preserving upside. The portfolio mindset. Instead of relying on one big decision, think in terms of a portfolio. Multiple small, controlled risks. Some will fail. Some will break even. A few will succeed. And one may produce results far beyond expectations. That one outcome can outweigh all the others. Why this creates a massive advantage? Most people avoid risk entirely, which means they never access high upside opportunities. Others take uncontrolled risks and suffer large losses. But those who think asymmetrically limit their losses, maximize their gains, stay in the game long enough to benefit from compounding. This creates a powerful advantage over time. Decisions that scale. Asymmetry is closely tied to leverage. You are not just asking, "Is this a good decision?" You are asking, "Can this decision grow beyond my initial input?" If the answer is yes, you are moving towards scalable outcomes. A new relationship with risk. To apply asymmetry, you must change how you view risk. Risk is not something to avoid. It is something to manage, to shape, to use strategically. Because without risk, there is no growth. But with unmanaged risk, there is instability. Asymmetry sits in the middle. Summary. Asymmetry is about making decisions with limited downside and large potential upside. Most people focus on avoiding loss, which keeps them stuck. Those who build wealth focus on risk-to-reward ratios. They control what they can lose and position themselves for disproportionate gains. They make small bets, think in portfolios, and allow compounding to work over time. To close the decision gap, you must stop avoiding risk and start choosing it intelligently. Practical lessons and exercises. 1. Risk evaluation. Before making a decision, define. What is the worst-case scenario, and can I handle it? 2. Upside identification. Ask, what is the maximum potential gain from this decision? 3. Small bet strategy. Take one low-risk action toward a high upside opportunity. 4. Portfolio thinking. List 3 to 5 opportunities you can explore simultaneously with controlled risk. 5. Downside protection plan. Set clear limits on time, money, or energy before committing. Transition to Chapter 10. Now you understand how to evaluate decisions based on risk and reward. But knowing what to do is not enough. Because even when the right decision is clear, there is still resistance. The pull toward immediate gratification. The desire for quick results. In the next chapter, we will address one of the most critical skills for closing the decision gap. The ability to delay gratification consistently. Because without it, even the best strategies fail. Coming up next. Chapter 10, The Discipline of Delayed Gratification, Training Yourself to Choose Growth Over Immediate Pleasure. Chapter 10, The Discipline of Delayed Gratification. Training yourself to choose growth over immediate pleasure. There is a moment in every decision where two forces compete. One says, take it now. Feel better now. Enjoy the reward now. The other says, wait. Build first. Choose what matters later. That moment defines more than the decision itself. It defines your trajectory. Because the ability to delay gratification is not just a habit. It is a decision advantage. The nature of immediate pleasure. Immediate pleasure is powerful. It is fast, accessible, predictable. You don't have to wait. You don't have to think long. You don't have to endure discomfort. And your brain is designed to favor it. Because in a survival context, immediate rewards meant safety. But in a modern environment, this same mechanism works against you. Because the most valuable outcomes, wealth, skill, freedom, leverage, all require time. The trade-off most people ignore. Every time you choose immediate gratification, you are not just gaining something. You are trading something. Time for distraction, money for consumption, energy for comfort. And those trades compound. Not visibly at first, but consistently, until they shape your reality. Delayed gratification as a strategy. Delaying gratification is not about deprivation. It is about prioritization. You are not rejecting pleasure. You are sequencing it. You are choosing to build first, then enjoy. Invest first, then spend. Work first, then relax. This shift changes the outcome of your decisions. Because now, your actions are aligned with growth. Why delay is difficult? If delayed gratification is so effective, why is it so hard? Because it creates a gap. A gap between effort and reward. You work, but don't see results immediately. You invest, but don't feel the gain yet. You build, but don't experience the outcome right away. And in that gap, doubt appears. Impatience grows. Motivation fades. This is where most people stop. The importance of trusting the process. To sustain delayed gratification, you must trust something you cannot yet see. You must believe that consistent effort will compound. Strategic decisions will pay off. Time will amplify your actions. This is not blind belief. It is understanding how systems work. Because anything that compounds requires time before it becomes visible. The identity of discipline. Delayed gratification is not just a behavior. It is an identity. It reflects someone who thinks long-term, manages impulses, prioritizes outcomes over feelings. And like any identity, it is built through repetition. Every time you delay a reward, you strengthen that identity. The shift from reaction to control. When you act on impulse, you react. When you delay, you choose. That pause creates control. And control allows strategy. Without control, your decisions are driven by mood, stress, environment. With control, your decisions are driven by intention, planning, alignment. Small delays, big impact. You do not need extreme discipline to change your life. You need consistent, small delays. Waiting before spending. Finishing work before distraction. Thinking before reacting. Each small delay strengthens your ability to choose. And those choices compound. The compound effect of discipline. Just like poor decisions accumulate, so does discipline. At first, it felt difficult. Then it becomes manageable. Eventually, it becomes automatic. And once it is automatic, you no longer rely on motivation. You rely on identity. The cost of constant instant gratification. If you never delay, you never build. You stay in a cycle of effort-reward reset. There is no accumulation, no compounding, no leverage, only repetition. And repetition without growth leads to stagnation. Retraining your reward system. To make delayed gratification sustainable, you must change what feels rewarding. Instead of only valuing outcomes, value the process. Completion of tasks. Consistency of effort. Progress over perfection. This creates internal rewards and reduces dependence on immediate external ones. A simple decision filter. Before acting on impulse, ask, is this helping my future, or just satisfying my present? This question creates awareness. It interrupts automatic behavior. And over time, it rewires your decisions. Summary. Delayed gratification is the ability to prioritize long-term outcomes over immediate pleasure. It requires managing the gap between effort and reward. Most people struggle because they seek instant feedback. But those who build wealth and control understand. Growth takes time. Compounding requires patience. Discipline creates freedom. By delaying small rewards consistently, you strengthen control, build better habits, and align your decisions with long-term success. Practical lessons and exercises. Impulse awareness. Notice one impulse each day and pause before acting. Delay practice. Delay one reward daily: spending, entertainment, or comfort. Task first rule. Complete one important task before engaging in any distraction. Progress tracking. Track small wins to create internal satisfaction. Future alignment question. Ask daily, does this decision support the life I'm building? Transition to Chapter 11. Now you understand how to control internal impulses. But your decisions are not shaped by internal factors alone. Your environment plays a powerful role, often stronger than willpower. Because the people around you, the systems you engage with, and the spaces you occupy, all influence your choices, often without you realizing it. In the next chapter, we will explore how your surroundings shape your decisions, and how to design an environment that supports better outcomes. Coming up next. Chapter 11, Environment and Influence, How Your Surroundings Pre-Make Your Decisions. Chapter 11, Environment and Influence. How your surroundings pre-make your decisions. There is a belief that holds many people back. It says that success is about willpower. That if you are disciplined enough, focused enough, strong enough, you will make the right decisions, regardless of your environment. But this is not how human behavior works. Your environment is not neutral. It is active. It is shaping you constantly. And most of the time, you don't even notice it. Because before you make a decision, your environment has already influenced it. The invisible hand of environment. Your surroundings are made up of more than physical space. They include the people you interact with, the information you consume, the systems you operate within, the habits that are normalized around you. Each of these elements sends signals about what is acceptable, what is expected, what is possible. And over time, those signals become your default behavior. Why willpower is not enough. Willpower is limited. It fluctuates. It depends on energy, mood, and stress levels. So if your environment constantly pushes you toward distraction, consumption, short-term thinking, then relying on willpower alone becomes a losing strategy. Because you are fighting your surroundings every day. And eventually, the environment wins. Defaults create decisions. Most decisions are not made consciously. They are defaults. You follow what is easiest. What is most available. What requires the least resistance. If unhealthy options are convenient, you choose them. If distractions are accessible, you engage with them. If your peers prioritize comfort, you adopt the same standard. Not because you decided to, but because it was the path of least resistance. Social influence, the power of proximity. The people around you have a disproportionate impact on your decisions. You absorb their beliefs, their habits, their expectations. If your environment normalizes short-term thinking, risk avoidance, comfort-seeking behavior, you will begin to mirror those patterns, even if you intend to act differently. On the other hand, when you are surrounded by people who think long-term, value growth, act strategically, your own decisions begin to shift. Because what is normal changes. The information you consume shapes your thinking. Your mental environment is just as important as your physical one. What you watch, what you read, what you listen to, all of it influences your perception. If your inputs are filled with noise, distraction, short-term content, your thinking becomes fragmented. But if your inputs are structured, intentional, focused on growth, your thinking becomes clearer, and clarity improves decision-making. Environment as a decision filter. Instead of relying on discipline to make the right choice, you can design your environment so that the right choice becomes easier. This is the shift from forcing behavior to guide behavior. You remove friction from beneficial actions. You add friction to harmful ones. And over time, your environment begins to pre-make your decisions. Designing for success. Ask yourself, what behaviors do I want to make easier? What behaviors do I want to make harder? Then adjust your environment accordingly. For example, if you want to focus, reduce distractions. If you want to save, limit access to spending triggers. If you want to learn, make knowledge accessible. Small changes create large effects, because they influence repeated decisions. The role of routines and structure. Structure reduces the need for decision-making. When you have routines, you don't rely on motivation. You don't negotiate with yourself constantly. You follow a system. And systems are more reliable than intention. This is how high performers operate. Not through constant effort, but through consistent structure. Escaping negative environments. Sometimes, the most powerful change is removal. Removing toxic influences, constant distractions, limiting beliefs. This creates space. Space for new patterns, new thinking, new decisions. Because you cannot build a different future in an environment that reinforces your past. Upgrading your proximity. You don't need a perfect environment, but you do need a better one. This can mean spending more time with growth-oriented individuals, engaging with higher-level ideas, placing yourself in situations that challenge you. Even small exposure can shift your perspective, and perspective shapes decisions. The compound effect of environment. Just like decisions compound, so does the environment. A supportive environment reinforces positive behavior. A limiting environment reinforces stagnation. And over time, the gap between the two becomes significant. Summary. Your environment plays a critical role in shaping your decisions. Most choices are influenced by defaults, not conscious thought. Willpower alone is not enough to overcome a misaligned environment. To close the decision gap, you must design your surroundings to support better decisions. Reduce friction for positive behaviors. Limit exposure to negative influences. Build systems and routines that guide your actions. Because when your environment is aligned, better decisions become natural. Practical lessons and exercises. 1. Environment audit. Identify 3 elements in your environment that negatively influence your decisions. 2. Friction adjustment. Make one bad habit harder to access. Make one good habit easier to perform. 3. Social upgrade. Spend time with people who reflect the mindset you want to develop. 4. Input control. Limit low-value content. Increase exposure to high-value information. 5. Routine creation. Design a simple daily structure that supports your goals. Transition to Chapter 12. Now you understand how your environment shapes your decisions. But awareness alone is not enough. You need a system. A structured way to consistently make better choices, regardless of mood, pressure, or circumstance. In the next chapter, we will bring everything together. You will learn how to build a decision-making framework that aligns identity, environment, and strategy into one system. Coming up next. Chapter 12, Rewiring the Decision Framework, Building a System that Forces Better Choices Automatically. Chapter 12, Rewiring the Decision Framework. Building a system that forces better choices automatically. Up to this point, you've seen the pieces. Decisions are not random. They are shaped by identity, emotion, time horizon, environment, and habit. You've seen how short-term relief competes with long-term power. Urgency overrides patience. Microdecisions compound into outcomes. Comfort prevents growth. Leverage multiplies results. Time horizon shapes direction. Identity sets limits. Emotions drive behavior. Asymmetry creates advantage. Discipline delays gratification. Environment pre-makes your choices. Now the question becomes, how do you bring all of this together? Because awareness alone does not change your life. You need a system. Why most people fail to change. Most people try to improve their decisions in isolation. They focus on being more disciplined, thinking more positively, working harder. But they ignore the structure behind their behavior. So they experience temporary progress, followed by regression. Because without a system, your default patterns return. And your defaults are stronger than your intentions. The purpose of a decision framework. A decision framework is a structured way of thinking and acting. It reduces randomness. It increases consistency. It aligns your actions with your long-term goals. Instead of asking, what should I do right now? You operate from, this is how I make decisions. And that shift changes everything. The 5 components of a powerful framework. To rewire your decisions, you must integrate 5 core elements. 1. Identity alignment. Who are you becoming? Every decision must reflect that identity. Not occasionally. Consistently. If your decisions don't match your identity, they won't last. 2. Time horizon expansion. What future are you building? Every decision must be evaluated beyond the present moment. Short-term thinking creates short-term results. Long-term thinking creates compounding outcomes. 3. Emotional control mechanism. How do you respond under pressure? You must have a process to pause, evaluate, choose intentionally. Without this, emotions will override your logic. 4. Environment design. What system are you operating in? Your surroundings must support your decisions. If your environment conflicts with your goals, you will struggle. 5. Leverage integration. How does this decision scale? Every meaningful decision should build something, multiply effort, create future advantage. The decision filter. With these components, you can create a simple but powerful filter. Before making a decision, ask, does this align with who I am becoming? Does this support my long-term future? Am I acting from emotion or intention? Is my environment helping or hindering this choice? Does this create leverage or just immediate output? If a decision fails most of these questions, it is likely misaligned. Automating good decisions. The goal is not to think harder every time. The goal is to reduce the need for thinking. By creating rules, systems, defaults. For example, pre-deciding how you spend money, structuring your day in advance, automating investments or learning routines. This removes decision fatigue and ensures consistency. From reactive to proactive. Most people live reactively. They respond to circumstances, emotions, external pressure. But a framework allows you to live proactively. You decide in advance what matters, what doesn't, how you will respond, and when situations arise, You already know what to do. The power of consistency. A single good decision will not change your life, but consistent decisions will. A framework ensures that good decisions are repeated. Poor decisions are reduced. Progress becomes predictable, and predictability creates confidence. Building your personal system. Your framework does not need to be complex. It needs to be clear. Start with a defined identity, a long-term vision, a small set of rules. Then apply them daily. Refine as you go, but keep it simple enough to follow. The shift from effort to structure. At the beginning, change requires effort. You must think more, pause more, act intentionally. But over time, structure replaces effort. Your system begins to guide your behavior, and what once required discipline becomes automatic. Closing the decision gap. The decision gap is not closed through one breakthrough. It is closed through alignment. When your identity supports your goals, your environment reinforces your behavior, your emotions are managed, your decisions are structured, your actions are consistent, the gap disappears, because your daily choices begin to match your desired future. Summary. Lasting change requires more than awareness. It requires a system. A decision framework aligns identity, time horizon, emotional control, environment, and leverage. This framework reduces randomness and increases consistency. By applying it daily, you move from reactive behavior to intentional action. And over time, your decisions begin to work for you automatically. Practical lessons and exercises. 1. Framework creation. Write your personal decision rules based on the 5 components. 2. Daily filter practice. Apply the decision filter to one important choice each day. 3. Automation setup. Identify one area you can automate: finances, learning, routines. 4. Environment alignment. Adjust one part of your environment to support your framework. 5. Consistency tracking. Track how often your decisions align with your framework. Transition to conclusion. You now understand how decisions shape your life, how they are influenced, how they are repeated, how they can be redesigned. But knowledge alone is not transformation. What matters now is what you do next. In the final section, we will bring everything together and define what it truly means to close the decision gap permanently. Conclusion. Becoming the person who chooses a different future. There is no single moment that changes your life. No instant where everything shifts permanently. No decision so powerful that it overrides everything else. Instead, your life changes the way it was built in the first place. Quietly. Gradually. Through decisions. The gap was never about money. At the beginning, it may have seemed like this was about income, about financial success, about earning more, about building wealth. But now you can see clearly. The decision gap was never just about money. It was about how you think, how you respond, how you choose. Because money is not the root. It is the result. What you now understand. You understand that small decisions matter more than big ones. Urgency can mislead you. Comfort can limit you. Leverage multiplies your outcomes. Time horizon shapes your direction. Identity defines your limits. Emotions drive your behavior. Environment influences your choices. Discipline creates freedom. Systems create consistency. These are not isolated ideas. They are connected. And together, they form the structure of your life. The truth about change. Change is not about knowing more. It is about deciding differently. Consistently. Not when it feels easy. Not when you feel motivated. But especially when you don't. Because that is when your old patterns try to take control. The person you must become. The goal is not just to make better decisions. It is to become someone who makes better decisions naturally. Someone who thinks beyond the present. Acts with intention. Manages emotions. Builds instead of reacts. chooses long-term over short-term. This is not a temporary state. It is an identity. And once it is established, everything else follows. The shift has already started. If you have followed this journey carefully, something has already changed. You are more aware. You see patterns you didn't notice before. You recognize the moments where decisions are made. And that awareness is powerful. Because you cannot go back to unconscious behavior. You now see the gap. The only question that remains. The gap is not theoretical. It exists in your daily life. In your routines. In your reactions. In your choices. And every day, you stand in front of it. Sometimes without realizing it. The question is no longer, do you understand it? The question is, what will you do when the moment appears? When you feel pressure, will you react or pause? When you feel discomfort, will you avoid or grow? When you face a decision, will you choose relief or power? The future is built in the present. Your future is not waiting somewhere ahead. It is being created right now. In how you spend your time. In how you handle your resources. In how you respond to challenges. Every decision is a vote. A vote for the person you are becoming. And those votes accumulate. No perfection required. You will not make perfect decisions. You will make mistakes. You will fall back into old patterns. You will choose comfort at times. That is not failure. That is part of the process. What matters is not perfection. It is direction. Are your decisions, overall, moving you forward? The compound effect of alignment. When your decisions begin to align with your identity, with your long-term vision, with your environment, with your strategy, something changes. Progress becomes smoother. Resistance decreases. Opportunities become clearer. Not because life becomes easier, but because you become more consistent. Closing the gap. Closing the decision gap is not a one-time event. It is a continuous process. A daily commitment to pause before reacting. Think beyond the present. Choose what builds, not what soothes. And over time, the gap shrinks. Until one day, something subtle happens. You no longer feel like you are forcing better decisions. You are simply making them. A final perspective. Most people spend their lives reacting to circumstances. A few decide to shape them. The difference is not luck. It is not talent. It is not accessible. It is the quality of decisions, repeated over time. Your next step. You don't need more information. You don't need a perfect plan. You need one thing. A different decision. Right now. Something small. Something intentional. Something aligned. Because the next decision you make, it is not just a choice. It is a direction. Final thought. The gap is real. But it is not permanent. And it is not outside of you. It is within your control. In every moment. In every choice. In every decision. So the question is simple. Will you continue choosing the same future? Or finally decide to create a different one? Final words. The decision you make after this matters most. You've reached the end of this audiobook. But this is not the end of the process. Because nothing changes from what you've heard. Only from what you do next. This is where most people stop. They listen. They understand. They feel motivated. And then, they return to the same patterns. The same decisions. The same reactions. The same results. Not because they didn't learn, but because they didn't apply. Don't let this become just another idea. You now see the decision gap. You understand how it works. You've recognized the patterns. The pull of urgency. The trap of comfort. The power of identity. The influence of environment. The weight of small decisions. That awareness is rare. But it is also fragile. Because if you don't act on it, it fades. Stack your transformation. This audiobook is one piece of a larger system. To fully rewire how you think, decide, and act, you need to go deeper. Continue your transformation journey with these essential audiobooks. The Fear Barrier. Why you're stuck, and how fear is controlling your life. The life you're not living. What happens when you never take the risk? Reprogram your limits. Break free from the invisible rules holding you back. The Habit Code. How your daily actions are quietly controlling your entire life. The Identity Loop. Why you can't change your habits, even when you try. The Repetition Trap. How your brain locks you into the same life every day. The Automatic Life. How habits turn you into someone you never chose to be. The Wealth Script. How your money beliefs were programmed without you knowing. The Scarcity Loop. Why thinking small keeps you poor, even if you work hard. The Income Identity. You earn what you believe you deserve. Each one builds on the last. Each one removes another layer. Each one helps you close the gap further. What's coming next? The next evolution is already on the way. The Comfort Cost. Why feeling safe is quietly making you broke. Because comfort is not just a habit. It's a hidden expense. And most people are paying for it, without realizing it. Your role in this. If this audiobook shifted your thinking in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Because someone around you is stuck in the same patterns you just became aware of. And one idea can change their direction. Before you go, like this audiobook, leave a comment with your biggest takeaway. Share it with at least 7 people who need to hear this. And most importantly, subscribe to MindLab Audiobooks. Because this is not just content. This is a system for transformation. One last reminder. Your life will not change from this moment alone. It will change from the decisions that follow it. So as you move forward, pay attention to the small choices, to the quiet moments, to the decisions that feel insignificant. Because that's where your future is being built. Closing. The gap is no longer invisible to you. So now, there is no going back. Only forward. One decision at a time.